Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, so we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to call the meeting to order and welcome our guests as well on Zoom, as well as in the council room. As just a reminder to the public, the council meetings are open to the public again. Also, KJIW, the Helena-West Daily World, who usually listens in, and any other media guests or visitors that are present. It was Tuesday, July the 5th, 2022, regular council meeting. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Here. Columbia. Present. Crocker. Franklin. Here. Evans. Here. Ford. Here. 6 present.
So the first item on the agenda since our last meeting, in which we spoke about the late Reverend Ernest Womack. He was Deputy Director of the Street Department, but also longtime organizer and person who ran our public swimming pool for many decades and did so much to our meant so much to our community, to our young people. And so out of respect, suspend. Mr. Franklin, we're trying to pass a resolution by Mr. Womack. Okay, so there's a resolution. I'm going to read it briefly. But what we want to do is rededicate the public pool in his memory. All of you knew of his dedication. So I'm going to read the resolution and ask for a motion in a second. Resolution, Reverend Ernest Womack Jr. Whereas our dear friend, neighbor, and co-worker Ernest Womack Jr. has been taken from this earth to live eternally with the Heavenly Father. And whereas Ernest Womack Jr. was a dedicated, reliable, and hardworking employee of the City of Helena-West Street Department and a steadfast servant to his church and community his entire adult life, and his untimely passing has left a void in the department and beyond. Whereas his love for his family, friends, and neighbors is hereby acknowledged and will forever be remembered and treasured. Now therefore be it resolved that Ernest Womack Jr. be given honor and favorable recognition for his work and for the kind of person he was down through the years. And be it further resolved that the swimming pool of the North Helena Park, which has long been a lifelong passion and labor of love for Ernest Womack Jr., be rededicated in his memory as the Ernest Womack Memorial Pool with a permanent plaque to be installed. And be it further resolved that I, Kevin Smith, Mayor of Helena-West, for and behalf of the citizens of this great city, extend my condolences to the bereaved family. Our prayers are also with you during this time in your lives. And finally, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be retained as part of the permanent record of the city, and the original shall be given to the family. Respectfully submitted this 5th day of July, 2022. So I would ask for a motion in a second to rededicate the Helena Public Pool in honor and in memory of the late Ernest Womack Jr.
So moved.
Mr. Clemmy moves adoption of the resolution. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? Ms. Crockett.
Did anybody contact any of his family members to let them know this will be happening tonight?
Yes.
No, you didn't. Well, let me make that go, but no.
I was at the funeral and I talked to several of them, but
Did you talk to his wife?
particularly Marvin. And
His wife?
particularly his
His wife,
son Marvin, who's working at.
no, his wife.
Well, yeah, your question was, did I notify any of the members?
So did you notify his
What is
wife?
your point, Ms. Carter?
I'm just asking, did you notify his wife?
I notified Marvin and told him that we wanted to make the event where we put the plaque up, an event where all the family members are invited and have time, and we can coordinate with people, preferably if we can get it done in time. While the children he served so long and so well, some of them are there to enjoy it, and have a cookout like he would have wanted. So, any other conversation, questions, comments? Mr. Franklin?
This is nice, but, it's to you. You know, we have other people who have died who have worked for the street and sanitation department for years. I know this is an election year for you, and I know you're trying to do all the things you can do to get reelected. But you have other employees who have passed away. We have not given a resolution. I understand it's a critical time for you and your election, you want to win. So you put out all the stops. But I think that it's other employees that the sanitation department lost 3 workers. And I think that you should put a memorial plaque for each one of those and notify their families. So that it can, you might show the same respect. You lost one of your great friends who you said that was a better friend to you than you were to him. Your friend was Reverend Cindy Trout. You know, he worked on your campaign to help you sit in that seat. Remember, if you don't remember one, great moment. But I think that folks, Mr. Edmonds said when we start naming streets, everybody will come one of the street names. But I think that you need to be careful. Yeah, he deserved this honor, but you got some more other people who work for the street sanitation department who have died. This last year, some of the first issue. But just be careful how you do it. And I wish you all the luck on your campaign, because you're doing so well.
All right, any other questions about the resolution to rededicate the pool in memory of Mr. Womack? If not, call the roll.
Everly,
Yes.
Ford, Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ford. 6 years.
Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda.
He's in the parking lot.
Ms. Valley is working on some items to be presented for you here shortly, but you'll see, Ms. Franklin, if you could. So there's an ordinance number 21, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract to purchase certain property. And this is for the Newman Drive ditch that was approved at the last meeting. And this is the, you asked Mr. Valley to come back with an ordinance to for official legal approval of it. And that's what this is. Any questions or comments about ordinance number 21?
I got a question.
Ms. Frank.
This is just, I saw that you posted on Facebook, that you bought some new equipment. Without authorization, would you be using this new equipment? Clean this ditch out, because I see other stuff that you tearing down, trees, but that being excavated was not approved by this body. And I see other contractors using city equipment. What's your question? My question is, would the people use the city equipment that we purchase, the country, they use the city equipment to do work for the city?
If they're properly insured and it makes sense, yeah. But you're asking about a matter that y'all approved last.
I want to make sure.
And you actually made the motion.
I know what I did, but I want to make sure that the people who do the work have to put their equipment. If they tear it up, we're responsible. We have not authorized the equipment, so they tear it up, so we, not us, because property belongs to the city council. Not you.
Well, of course, I don't agree with your
You know,
statement about the equipment and the record also that,
Property and finances.
Mr. Franklin, you can talk over, but it's still gonna be true, that your memory of the record is inaccurate. But if you're asking me,
I just don't want people to use.
Mr. Frank, I'm not so sure if you're asking me a question, but if you're asking me, or you're saying to me that it's your preference, Mr. Franklin, if you're saying to me that it's your preference that no city equipment be used in this project, then I'll note it and I'll let them know.
Right.
Is that your point? Okay. No city equipment. They have to use equipment.
No city, you know what I'm saying, no city to use to do any work. If you're a contractor.
Mr. Franklin, the question's on the ordinance. Okay. Do you have any questions or comments about the ordinance
That's
itself?
what.
So your point is you don't want any city equipment to be used in this work that's covered by this?
No.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that if you're asking my opinion. And as far as I know, there wasn't any city equipment being planned to be used in that project. But it is a contractor and the low bidder was $12,000. And that's the reason for the waiver of competitive bidding in this ordinance, which is discussed last time. Any other questions or comments about ordinance number 21?
We put ordinance number 21 on the quick final read.
St. Connie moves ordinance number 21. On third and final reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Evans seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Ford,
Yes.
Esterly,
Yes.
Franklin,
Crockett. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. And so the question for the council would be a motion for final passage of ordinance number 21, 2022. An ordinance, I've read most of this already, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding in accordance with Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase certain property for the city of Helena-West and for other related purposes.
I move for adoption.
Ms. Joseph Linda moves adoption. Is there a second?
Before you,
Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Mr. Ellis seconds the motion. Mr. Franklin?
I can't vote on this because you got one in 2021, this is year 2022.
Well, I read it as 22 and I made the correction accordingly. It's a typo. So the ordinance is 2022.
But it's 21. Okay.
Well, I would urge you to change that to 2. The motion was 22, and we'll get Mr. Riley to correct the typo for the record. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett, Davis,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 abstention.
I move for adoption for the emergency clause being acted.
St. Columbia moves adoption of the emergency clause on ordinance number 21, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Etherly seconds the motion for the emergency clause. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis, Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Crockett,
Abstain.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
5 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay, the next one is something I don't know.
He's working on that and also the next one after that.
So we'll talk about it. If you have any questions, save time for when he does. But Helena Industries, which most of us know as Helena Chemical, graciously or generously donated, I believe it was $28,000 for the purchase of the Skycop to be placed at Washington Street and Highway 49 bypass, which has been a scene known for shootings. And this week I accepted the check on behalf of the city. along with Chief Mayfield. And first of all, I want to thank Helena Industries for generosity, their corporate citizenship. They also challenged other corporations and companies in the city to follow their example and to purchase Sky Cops and throughout the city. And y'all already know, I think, that when fully in place, we should have, with 2 private ones on First Street, about 13 Sky Cops deployed, 2 mobile ones that are moved. They've been tremendously effective. They continue to be tremendously effective everywhere they go. So that's the point of this. And so we'll wait though until Mr. Valley gets done and gets out here with the actual ordinances. But any questions about the Sky Cop?
Yeah, I have a question about the Sky Cop.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You said that I voted for them, and I think that what you're saying is that they've been helpful, right?
They have.
Okay. Well, you do know there's nobody watching them, right? You didn't pay for, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave it.
Well, the one on Ladino
No,
has
sir.
tag recognition and discovered
No, sir.
a tag that had a stolen car.
No, sir.
And it was immediately identified in the database and we were alerted and the car was
Over there.
returned to the police agency. So they're remarkable. They're mostly followed on Chief Mayfield and some of the other phones. So that's how they've been monitored. Since we first deployed them, we hope to get sort of a Star Trek looking thing going over at the Justice Complex in the dispatch area. Eventually, that's the plan. But right now, they're monitored on the cell phones of Lieutenant Smith and Chief Mayfield.
But you are aware that, if we're gonna be accurate, let's be accurate. We didn't pay for that service, Ms. Ramsey, to have them monitored. Larry Duck and Associates, they paid for it. A company out of Memphis watched those units, his apartment complex. He had those on each of his apartment complex. He pays for that service. We got those Sky Cams. We did not. We didn't pay for those. We just got the Sky Cams.
Well, we can monitor all of them and we do monitor them. And
If we did-
Mr. Dell did purchase them privately, but he also signed a form allowing us to access them.
Well, that,
So any other questions about the Sky Cup? Mr. Valley, did you happen to, I know you're in the middle of doing this, so I'm just kind of giving you some time to do these ordinances on the Sky Cop. And
The Sky Cop?
one of them is on the Sky Cop. Okay, well, I don't want to delay you.
I'll take
We can bring it back up to the next one if you want. If you have time to bring it, I mean, we've already got the money. I just need your approval to go ahead and get it and deploy it. The sooner we do it, the sooner we can deploy it, the safer that area of town will be. Okay, any other questions about the Sky Cop? All right, so we'll move on to ordinance. Do we have an ordinance on this?
Which one on the
We
conflict?
passed them on for the last one, is that what it was?
The conflict, no.
Conflict of interest
He's looking
ordinance.
at one.
So we're working on that one too. Appointment to the planning commission, fill 2 vacancies. So previous meetings, this has been on the agenda, we brought it up, and it's been in your packet. Mr. Amos Eckerson has a master's in urban planning, is an architect, a licensed architect. And I believe we're making an excellent addition to the planning commission. So I think we still have one open position since this was in your packet, that Mr. Eckerson is the one for you. And that he needs your confirmation. Any questions? Could you say that?
I said, I don't know.
So the question for the council would be the confirmation of the appointment of Mr. Eckerson to fill a vacancy on the planning commission. Is there a motion to confirm?
So moved.
Mr. St. Clement moves confirmation of the appointment to the commission. Is there a second? All right, so last one. Is there a second? The planning commission is pretty crucial to the operation of our city. So many things. You were just talking earlier about naming streets. That is something that starts with the planning commission. They need an operating active commission in order to do the job. And I believe they're paid $50 a month or something like that. So I think it might be the only commission that's actually paid. So it's important. It's important they do their job. And if they have an active commission and do that, they need the positions filled.
Just bring me.
Betty Brimley.
I got
Betty Brimley stepped down.
The issue is this, Mr. Mayor, that is, most of these people on the council have been here for a number of years. And if they don't know the individual who is being suggested or recommended, most times they want them to come here and just introduce themselves and show their face. Now, I know him, and apparently Mr. St. Columbia knows him, and you remember he came to A&P maybe a meeting, and he said it may have been your first time meeting, speaking to Ms. Davis, but you should probably just ask him to come to a meeting.
So is that true for all the commission appointments?
Huh?
Is that true for any commission appointment?
I said if they don't know. What he do? Over the years, historically, over the years, there have been people who sat at this table and said, have everybody come when they're going to be appointed. Some people say, well, I know them, and they vote for them. But what I'm saying is, I'm hearing people saying, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? That means
Okay.
have him come and introduce himself to everybody.
All right, so I'll ask Mr. Erickson if he'll come for the committee.
What are you doing this time?
I'm sorry, for the council. He is a contractor and an architect. And,
What you say?
what he do? All right, so we're moving on.
Where are you?
I think he was the one that designed this over here. Okay.
He did, he designed and oversaw the construction of the Lane Memorial. He's been around for a long time. He was introduced here, I think, I can't remember the name of the architect, the historic architect that did so much work here right now. It escapes me, but anyway. So, all right, unless you want to revisit that, we'll move on. He's probably one of the most qualified people that could ever sit on one of our planning committees because he's got a master's in urban planning and he's an architect. He would be an incredible asset to our city, and we're lucky that he's agreed to serve on it. But if you don't know him or want to know more about him, we'll get you more information. And I'll invite him to come. He's from here. He lives in Helena, Arkansas. He lives on College Street.
What is he, I mean, where did he work prior to this?
He owns his own company,
What's the name of his company?
Ecker Built or something like that.
So been here about 10 years.
Ecker Built. I believe.
I don't even know who he. I've asked the mayor, Joe. I mean, you know him. I don't know him, and I mean, you know.
Yeah, I'd say 10 years.
He's gonna do great things for Helena. Is that what you're trying to say?
He has done.
Okay, well, see, but that's the thing. If we don't know that, and I mean, you know, the planning commission can make their recommendation. I'm fine with that, but I just think that, you know, has it? Is that?
I actually did want the planning commission to make a recommendation, but they haven't been able to meet. So, but appointments are made by the mayor in this case. The mayor appoints, and y'all confirm. So, and we are lucky that, I want him to not misunderstand. We are very fortunate and grateful that he's willing to serve the city, particularly somebody with those kind of credentials. And, but if you're not familiar with him, we'll ask him to come back before the council. Anything else on that?
So what is this person's salary will be?
What person?
All of the planning commission members are paid $50 a month.
Yeah,
If you just ignore them. You currently have two people who are not coming to meetings. One, Brenda, Steve said the residence, and one is Mr.
James,
DMA Realty.
James on.
James on, thank you. He attended, he is. In Arkansas, there's no vacancy in public office. However, they're not coming to the meetings and there is a need for someone to be appointed. The mayor's correct that he appoints and you all affirm in this case, reading the statute and the local ordinance. So the other thing is, Plan Commission has been meeting lately. They had a public hearing last month. But if you all decide to table it, then those two positions will remain unfilled until they come in. Now, again, I say unfilled loosely because there's no vacancy in public office. So those two individuals, though they're saying that they're not on the board anymore, they're still there until you all find a successor. Arkansas law states that there is no vacancy in public office.
So we only have one. Who is the other person?
There hadn't been a second nominee by the mayor. The planning commission asked the mayor's office to allow them to submit names. And what he just stated earlier was that no name is submitted for, Mr. Arnold was the first person that attended his, and Ms. Brenda attended her second. The only nomination that he's made was for the seat to fill Mr. Arnold's position.
Yes, I haven't heard any objections from any, Mr. Franklin.
Is it fair to say, do you know why these people turn your resignation in?
I believe that Mr. Arnold said, he says publicly that he had moved out of the city limits, is what he said. Ms. Brenda has not stated why.
I know the commission, during COVID, commission, a lot of organizations weren't active. And I think that set the city and the whole country, the whole world back. But here locally, the planning commission and a few other commissions have been victim of sort of inactivity and during that period of pandemic. So they've had a hard time kind of getting restarted, rebooted. But the planning commission is paid $50 a month in part because they do play a very important and vital role in the city. If you want to put up a sign on Cherry Street, you got to get the planning commission to approve it. So they do need to meet. They do have business to tend to. Several members do want to meet and be active, but they need us to fill the positions. So I thought if we filled one, the other one, I'd like to go ahead and meet and recommend another person for that vacancy. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll put that on another agenda and we'll back. Mr. Anderson. So, Mr. Fowler, are you ready for things? Mr. Junior, just.
Scott Cobb right here. Scott Cobb right here.
All right, so we're going to pass, we're going to go on to the Helena-West Future Leaders Youth Sports Association donation transport meeting. Sorry, the guy will pass over that.
Okay. Well, I think that on the donation of it, I don't think we can do it, and I think they'd have to purchase it. The cities can't give away properties. I think we can do a private sale or a public sale of the property. We can't just give. Because the entire citizens own the equipment that we're trying to donate. It's a good cause, but tender some fee.
Recommend a course of action to move forward.
I don't know what it appraises for, but
Said the same thing you just said tonight. city can't give property away. It has to be a sealed bid. It has to be bidded. And I thought we would have it ready by now because I to go to get the material appraisal, get the item appraised, see what it's worth, and let you all know. So, that was established at the last meeting that we had when we brought this issue up.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Valley advises that we're ready to go back to the ordinance way, rather bidding on the Sky Cop. Mr. Valley.
The Sky Cop, this is just what I've typed. It's just the ordinance way building an amount of $28,000 for the purchase of a Sky Cop. Camera system. I think you'll already had the discussion, but we have to do it by ordinance. We have to waive competitive bidding, place. Switching rules, place on third, final reading the title only, and we can go from there. If you so choose to go forward. You don't have it in front of you, it's on my computer. We talked about that, but it's just the same ordinance that Joel adopted. I mean, the section gave you the ordinance also in the packet relating to another piece of equipment. Do I have a first ordinance? Okay. You don't have adopted 21 or 22? Yeah. And so the language is essentially the same, except for we're changing the entity, which is the police department, and we're changing the amount to $28,000. Yes, ma'am.
Funds donated to the city. I missed that.
I didn't hear you.
The funds donated to the city.
Yes, the funds, I'm sorry, yeah, funds were donated to the city, that's right. And it's been deposited.
And it's been what?
Deposited.
It's an anonymous.
No, it's Helena Industries. That's what I was saying earlier. Helena Industries, who we commonly refer to as Helena Chemical, out on the bypass, they donated it. And we had a check presentation with Chief Mayfield was with me and other officials from the company, and the placement will be, and that this was part of the reason they approved the request. I asked them if they would donate a Sky Cop, and they asked what they could do to help the city on crime. I asked them if they could donate a Sky Cop. They said they would. They'd like to see it at the Washington Park in Highway 49, which they have been the scene of shootings in the past, and so they did. And we have a check presentation, but we need your approval in order to actually use that money to purchase the Sky Cop.
You know, I haven't typed up this number, but see it. It's in my computer. Yes, I'll print it for you. So the motion is to place on third and final reading the title only, suspend the rules. Ms. Davis.
Yes.
And your second is the same, Ms. Franklin. This ordinance number 22-22.
So the question for the council is third final reading ordinance number 22.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments about the motion? Mr. Franklin?
The Sky Hills is going to be put in that area.
Yes, yes, sir.
Since we don't have that protection over it, can you make sure one thing,
Sorry.
right there in Washington Street, where we own a park at, can you make sure they cut all that back by the fence row, make sure that baseball field back there is cut? And we pay people to cut, we pay people to pick them limbs that been there since Easter storm, had them get them limbs up.
It's my understanding that's already in the works.
Let's talk about that today.
I went by there yesterday, and I know what you're talking. Yeah, you told me I didn't go by there.
I didn't say, I said,
Is that what you're telling me?
I didn't tell you that. I said, when I was just said that, came to the meeting, it was not picked up. The tree, the tree, the limb is cut, hanging down. We were playing basketball out there Sunday. And I went by there today before I came here because we made all these promises when Dragon William came here that they was gonna help with the park. What happened with those funds? They were supposed to take care of Washington Street Park. Am I right there, David? You remember when Dragon William came here and made this big presentation, how they were gonna revamp that area of Washington Street Park? Has not happened. They got away.
Well, Dragon Woodland,
If that's true, Mr. Mayor, they still made,
Mr. Franklin.
they still said that they would help with that area over there. Even though they're gone, that area still, those things they got to go, the concrete bars, they got to go in the ditches and stuff over there, still sits on our property. All I'm saying is this, it's not an argument. All I asked was, the baseball field back there at the Wardell Seals Memorial Park, those trees, one of those trees have been cut and it's hanging down. I just saw that today. Those ditches over there are not cut. The ditch that runs west, going back toward West Street, behind the bucket, behind the hut right there, those ditches are overgrown. That's all I'm saying. If we're gonna put some sky caps there, let's cut the trees, let's cut the grass over so the sky can pick up movement. That's all I'm saying. It's not an argument. That's all I just asked you. That's all I'm asking. Can you? I did what you asked us to do. When you make sure that the ditch is cut, the trees are cut back, and the park is cut so people can come to the park. That's it.
yes, sir. And all I was trying to tell you was that the Public Works Department already has that on their agenda, and the rest of that will get done. Okay, any other questions or comments about the motion? It's to put it on third and final reading. If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes, it is.
Crockett,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
6 yes.
Order number 22-2022, an order having been in accordance with Arkansas Code annotated section 1458-303, authorizing the mayor to a contract to purchase certain equipment for City Hall or something, and for all the related purposes. There needs to be a motion to adopt.
Mr. Franklin moves, Mr. Davis seconds, motion for final adoption of ordinance number 22, 2022. Any questions or comments about the motion? Mr. Franklin.
I'm glad that we got that. Can we often see, can we use some money to get a sky cam put on the 10th Street Park? And there's another park in Mrs. Davis Ward that hadn't been developed, but it's a park that the Valley Administration used to keep cut. I would like to see us look in those two areas, 10th Street and over here is another park on West Park that facing Jordan Street. I would like to see a sky cam put there for those, that park there is an open field that hasn't been developed, but the city used to keep it cut and things like that. I just want to see if we can get one park, we need to try to take care of these parks and try to develop these parks at some point.
I agree with you. I'd like to see one at every park, and I'll pass that along to Mr. Chief Mayfield, who I'll try to leave most of the decisions to about the high crime areas. What we need really is probably 100, I think was our initial goal. We're a long way from that, but we could use 100 and that's definitely needed. I agree with you. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Crockett, St. Columbia, 6 yes.
Motion passes.
There's a emergency clause.
Mr. Franklin moves adoption of the emergency clause on ordinance 22, 2022. Is there a second? From the second motion, any questions or comments about the emergency clause? If not, call the roll.
Davis,
Yes.
Ford, St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin, Etherly,
Yes.
Crockett, 6 yes.
Motion passes. So at this point, we're pretty much done with our action items. one of the issues, probably the main issue before the council tonight is the redrawing city council wards. What's before you, what's before you are copies of maps and an ordinance, which I'll let Mr. Riley speak to in a minute, that have been derived from a lawsuit that Mr. James Valley filed against the city recently, urging the city to adopt new wards according to the 2020 census numbers. So you have, what you will have shortly, as soon as I move out of the way, will be options for the council. The email from the municipal league just makes it clear that, well, I'll let you read it, but that's the actual statute that's referred to. I think you have two printed versions that come from the GIS. One is a map of the existing wards. The other is a map of one of Mr. Valley's options. We weren't able to get all of the GIS maps that would correspond with Mr. Valley's maps. But Mr. Valley's maps was, I think, yeah, Ms. Halbert's trying to get those on the screen so that we can all see them and the public can see them as well. The statute makes clear, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Valley, that it is a function purely of the city council to redraw boundaries. While there is no statutory deadline, no 90-day requirement or reference to the census, I do think, in my opinion, I do think that the issue has merit because we do have an election, we do have a census. The Census Bureau has since admitted that they have undercounted Phillips County. They have not discussed a remedy though for that, which is more important to me. So in the meantime, all we can do is act on the information we do have. So these are the maps presented by James Valley, and we have one version in front of you from the GIS, state GIS offices who does this for the state that shows existing ward boundaries, and then Mr. Valley's option 3, I believe it is, map 3, is a GIS version in front of you on your table. But behind me, and I'm going to get out of the way and also let Mr. Valley speak, are the options before you tonight. So having said that, Mr. Valley, I'm going to recognize.
Witness to that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The city attorney.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. The city has been sued relating to the current maps of the city of Helena-West, Helena. The basic of the lawsuit is one man, one vote, and my brother, Attorney J.F. Valley, has brought the cause of action. As part of it, he has submitted 5 different maps to the city for the city to adopt. The last maps, many of you all are familiar with, were adopted in 2018, when this body went from 10 city council members down to 6. So there's a slight deviation in the rules. The city's duty is to ensure when we have the elections or as equal as practicable. And there are various factors that are considered. The ordinance that I have before you is a typical ordinance that we do under these circumstances, weighing what the city council's duties are related to it. There are 4 different major opinions relating to this from the United States Supreme Court relating to what the city council duties are. Now, in this ordinance that I have before you, it leaves the alternative number blank as to which map you're going to adopt. It is up to you all to adopt the map. The mayor can't make you adopt the map. I can't make you adopt the map. And the city council has to choose based on a litany of factors as to what the city council deems appropriate. Now, also, I must admit that part of it, we're drawing close to the filing deadline. As you all are aware, people already circulating petitions for office And the opening of the filing begins August 3rd, ends August 10th. So time is of the essence if you're going, to the extent we're going to make a change. And that ends August 10th at noon. And so people are already circulating petitions to get signatures, and it primarily would affect the 6 officers that are city council members, because the other officers are at large. At this November's election, all of us are on the ballot. That being stated, if a person were to circulate a petition without the full knowledge of the current map, they may be excluded from their electoral office, because they must have, regardless of the fact that you have out at large or you have the in the ward running, you still are qualifying based on the wards that you're in. Now, overall, there are several factors to consider. One of them is the total deviation plus or minus for the wards. Our plus or minus together, that shouldn't be a greater than 5% deviation. And what that means is the numbers that you all have before you on your maps, what it would show is that each ward has a population. And when you look at those populations, one shouldn't be so much greater than the other that it creates a violation of the principle of one man, one vote. All citizens of the city of Helena-West should be treated the same. And so to the extent that we can have a ward or wards, a group of wards that are all within that 5% deviation, then that'll be acceptable by the state of Arkansas and the federal court, state court, whatever court that we may find ourselves in. To that extent, I'm oversimplifying it, but to that extent, Attorney J.F. Valor has provided several maps with this lawsuit that he suggested the city should consider to adopt. Ms. Halbert, I believe this is map number 1 that's on the screen.
This is the current map.
This is current.
The GIS office.
Okay, current map, what it shows is Ward 1 currently has a population of 2,950 people. Ward 2 has a population of 3,338 people. And Ward 3 has a population of 3,231 people. So Ward 1 currently is underrepresented. That's a 7% deviation with that one, and a 5% deviation with Ward 2. And so those two together created an issue for us, the wards. And so there needs to be some adjustments to it. Also, on this, the GIS map, it shows to the extent that these red dots that you see on this is where aldermen or the city council members reside. One of the factors to consider in redistricting is how holders, and this shows where you all reside. 6, I think. Oh, that's 6 for that. 6 is coming up at B Street. But that's all of you. So on its face, there needs to be some adjustments to the wards, because there is a greater deviation of 5%. That's in Ward 1 is 7%, Ward 2, 5.2% in and of itself. So there does need to be some adjustment, even though we merely did this for a year. Ms. Howard, you go to the next one.
This next one is an alternate that the GIS provided as well, and then I have Mr. Valley's packages.
Okay. So this is an alternative that provided by GIS. It says here, what's on the map number 3. It has 3 wards. It's the ordinance we've already created in 2018 with 3 wards, where in each ward, one of you are elected at large and others elected within the ward. And this population here, what it shows is in Ward 1, it shows a population of 3,143, Ward 2, 3,205, and Ward 3, 3,171. Now, deviations is less than 1% for Ward 1, 1% for Ward 2, and it is 0.06% for Ward 3. So it passes constitutional muster. Now, for some of you all that may be wondering what's the overall population, demographic as a way to race. This map will one that has a Caucasian population that says white on this. It's be 10.47% in Ward 1. So Ward 1 is here, comes all the way around, and the population would be. The white population will be 10.47%. The African American or black population will be 85%. Ward 2, Ward 2 would be the yellow. Ward 1 is the pink. The yellow is 37.47%. Caucasian or white, as it says here, and it'd be 58.47% African American or black, as it says here. Ward 3 would be 13% Caucasian, 83% African American in Ward 3. Now, as it shows on this map, Mr. Anthony and Mr. Franklin would be in Ward 1. In Ward 3, I'm sorry, thank you. Ward 3, then it shows Miss Davis and Miss Crockett and Miss Ford in Ward 1. This is on the GIS. Crockett is in the yellow. Crockett is in the yellow. No. On GIS? Yeah, Crockett is in the yellow. Oh, well, okay, well, let's expand the verse and Crockett right on the board. And what's the second one? Is that? And so that's the verse that's done by GIS. And so that would be GIS version number 3. So let's go to the next one. The next one, this doesn't have all the data attached. It has data on a separate sheet, but this is map number 1 suggested by Attorney James Valley. This does not show which ward is which, but the maps, now one of the factors to consider, the other map came all the way around, and there may be some issue about the contiguousness of it. It passes constitutional muster for the population and et cetera. Would be the conditions, the contiguous and the traditional voting blocks and et cetera. But this one was three wards, I believe that it stays similar. I don't have numbers. This is our number for the next one. The numbers on this one shows the deviation. It shows very similar numbers. It shows the population is 3,141 in Ward 1, 3,213 in Ward 2, and 3,164 in Ward 3. And each of these deviations, the first one is 0.0098, which is very, very minimal, and 0.0126 and 0.0028. So all the wards are close to that. Now, as it relates to general population, what it shows for Caucasian population in Ward 1 would be 10%, Ward 2, 33%, Ward 3, 26%. The African American percentage in Ward 1 would be 88, Ward 2 would be 64, Ward 3, 69. That's a 2.424 deviation when you add all these numbers up. That's what we're talking about. Yes, sir.
Since we had this method, the current that we have, is it possible that we could, with the way these wards draw, can we add another ward to this? Because we went down from 10 to 6, but we could have kept 8.
The city council, you all could do it when it's creating additional positions if you so chose, but you currently have 6, and the issue would be the longevity in doing so. That would be one of the issues you have at this point, and this later junction, and changing and adding 2 more aldermen to 2 more city council aldermen that done away with the last session. You all city council where all the exist. Can we go to the next one? Ms. Talbot. This is Attorney James Valley's second suggestion, map 2. And you all have before you have to put that as GIS. As the mayor was saying, the mayor tried to get GIS done. They tried to get GIS to give a copy of Attorney Valley's map. Each one of them, but he was unable to do so at such a time. Except for Ward 3. They were able to do all 5 of them, not 3. Thank you. Let's go to the deviations in this one. Now 2 is 2.77% deviations. The numbers are pretty similar. 3,151 in Ward 1, 3,140 in Ward 2, and 3,228 in Ward 3. And this is just total deviation 2.77%. And that deviation that shows is the white population is 31% in Ward 1, 14% in Ward 2, 24% in Ward 3. The African American, African American Black population is 65% in Ward 1, 84% in Ward 2, and 72% in Ward 3. I want to map 5 before we go through the open assignments. Map 3 is another, so it's similar to, this is one that is very similar to the one that was sent by GIS. GIS took, I believe, the Planet Valley's map 3 and reproduced it. Because that's what's in front of you. This is number 3 that you already know. That's what's before you, in front of you. That you have right now with the very class that we covered before. So we've already covered this. We go to map 4. Map 3 has 1.95 deviation. We've already covered it. But this is on a 1.9% deviation. We covered this before earlier when we did the GIS version of this. Map 4, current map used. We covered that as well. It's 11.66% deviation. So map 5 is probably the one that's the least intrusive in change. Map 5, between the numbers is Ward 3 is what Ms. Edwards would be. Ward 2 is here. Ward 1 is there. But the numbers in this one, this is the least. It moved only about 50 people. I think it's very amount of movement. 3,177 people in Ward 1, 3,172 people in Ward 2, 3,170. And so just in raw numbers, there's only 5 people different between Ward 1 and Ward 2, and only 7 people difference in Ward 1 and Ward 3. So the overall deviation is the smallest of all is 0.22. The population of this would be Ward 1. The white population would be 28%. Ward 2, the white population would be 31%. Ward 3, the white population is 9%. The Black population in Ward 1 is 68%, and Ward 2, 65%, Ward 3, 88%. So those are the 5 maps that you have before you at this moment. You don't have any questions about it?
Can I see that?
Can we go backwards to show the meaning of map 5? Thank you, sir.
I'm still being
You still being 1, you're in this area here.
What's the mechanism there somewhere? No, I see.
On map 5, all of the council members remain where they are. I run the numbers on each one when I say run the numbers.
I don't know from a practical standpoint how many people are moved. That we've had before, which is some consideration we should have. It's not the consideration, but it's some consideration. The county clerk has to move people in every political race. When I say she has to move people in every political race, in the governor's race, she enters each person separately. So the person moved, they have to change in the governor's race. They have to change in the lieutenant governor's race if that's an opponent. Secretary of State, they have to also be changed in the race involving in a state legislature, or whether it's a state senate or a state representative. They also have to be changed in any county races and city races. So each person is moved in each of the races. So the clerk has always traditionally, because the city has done this 2 or 3 times, has always been upset about the volume of people that are moved. Now, that is a consideration. That is not decent consideration. I was just telling you all that this is a matter of course, as the part, what she's going to go through. Because the issue is the wards have to be moved as soon as possible. To the extent you're going to move anything, you have to do it as soon as possible because the election has to take place and people are circulating petitions now, including yourselves. You want to make sure that when you give your signatures that you're getting someone who is actually in your ward, not in another ward. But that's for you all to discuss now and for you all to go forward. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Just add something to your point about population. One of the things I did notice that GIS confirmed for me was, and I just think it's interesting, you should know, Ward 3 picked up population. Ward 1 lost a lot of population, and Ward 2 lost population, but not as much. So I thought that was interesting. I just want to share it with you.
Now, the ordinance I've adopted, not adopted, the ordinance I have drafted, thank you. The ordinance I've drafted is blank on which one is actually used, but all the language still applies. And earlier I mentioned all of the cases. The cases of Shaw versus Reno, the factors they consider in that case are the compactness, the contiguity, respect for political subdivision, traditional redistricting principles. Miller versus Johnson also, the actual shared interest in additional redistricting with people. And Bush versus Vera, that's maintain the traditional boundaries to this, is one of the factors to consider. And Abrams versus Johnson, identifying and maintain district cores and protecting the incumbents from contest with each other as traditional redistricting principles. These are not all of the principles, but these are the larger portion of the principles that you should be concerned about. And so those are factors that those come from the United States Supreme Court. All of those cases, not from Arkansas, of course, but from the United States Supreme Court. So I guess we'll now open up for discussion related to which of the maps you all like the best, so we can go forward.
5 looks to be the easiest to me.
Because it's not, it's not.
It's an ordinance. So.
I move for 5.
Well, first we gotta select which one y'all want.
Okay, so I'll second that motion.
Let's go.
No, not the ordinance. Right now, they're saying we want for the adoption of, right now, they're voting on map number 5 as opposed to the others, and then we'll do the ordinance. Is that what your motion was?
Right, it's to which should go in.
Okay, so Mr. Franklin makes a motion that the city council adopt the map 5 in the scheme that's been presented to you tonight. Mr. Etherly seconds the motion. Are there any questions or comments about the motion?
You said the scheme.
The schema of the map. He presented 5, well, one of them is just existing, so it's not a derogatory term.
How does that compare to what we have right now?
That's the
To what we have now?
Ms. Howard, can we go to the numbers on this one here? This one, the population shows 3,177 were 1, 3,172 2, 3,173. And the population is related to, they lost like race, which is the population. Right, so this not probably, the country is 50 days and from the and the greatest war has 7 more people than the least war on the map of the 5 position. Let's go back to the system. Right, we're not showing you numbers where we are right now. Again, this. the current reality, and the numbers that you have, that's 660 Grayson. With Ward 1 only has 2,950 people. Ward 2 has 3,220 people. And Ward 3 has 3,249 people. Show them that. Okay, can you go back to sort of map on this current map? Yes, sir, current map. This is current map. And so 5 is very similar to that. It moves some people slightly. I believe overall it moves less than 50 people. Is that correct?
No, it moves a little more than that, but basically, it took people out of Ward 3 and put them in Ward 1 to balance out the number. So you see the red moves up toward the stage side. It picked up those people out on Dodge and stuff like that. That's basically all we did. It's a little bit more than that, but that's basically what it is. Ward 1 was underpopulated, Ward 3 was kind of over. So 3 got some of 2 and 1 got some of 3.
Where did Ward 2 pick up? People.
Ward 2 basically kept the same core of people. It lost some when we redistricted. It moved some to Ward 3 and some to Ward 1. So you got a 7-person difference where you had about a 250-person difference. So it's really tight in terms of the number of people per ward.
Yeah.
It looks good. And then it preserved the current where they live. So wherever you are, you'll be in the same ward as that was adopted, the number 5 was adopted.
You can see Ward number 5.
Right, I mean, that's current, and number 5 is pretty close to it.
It's current map, and we see number 5 again, it's out, so you can see the difference. This
It's about the same thing. Different.
right. This area here was in green. This was the current map, this was in green, and then I think this line moves on.
Also, one other big difference is the East Drive moved from 2 to 3. The library, middle school and all that. Yeah, that moved. Right there.
These signs here.
That's it. It was in 2 before, and now it's in 3.
We moved some 2 to 3.
And you were saying you were saying here from 2 to 3, these drives. These drives out by the schools. And those apartments are there by the school from here to Ward 3. And this area here is doors and as you know, these were 2 pockets within the city limits. So this was
That's y'all the junkyard.
right. That's a junkyard. That's what we're not. Of course, this is bad. Yeah. That's the question. Second. So you're really more question there. We most of the second was to adopt map number 5.
All right, no further questions or comments? Call the roll.
Call it. Question is choice map 5 of the maps that were presented before you tonight. Motion second. Call the roll.
Davis? Yes. St. Louis?
Yes.
Crockett?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Holmes, 6 yes.
So now I have what is that, give it to the board. Well, right, we would have 5 as proposed. This is number 23-22. The red line share when I talk about Supreme Court opinions. It's now alternative number 5, which is tax to the tax to the year of this ordinance. 23-22.
Motion is second on ordinance number 2322 to put it on third final reading. Are there any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett, Franklin,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
6 yes.
Ordinance number 23-2022, ordinance modifying the rules in the city of Helena-West, Arkansas, and adopting a map that correlates to the amendments within the city of Helena-West, Arkansas for other purposes. These were motion adopted.
Mr. Elliott moves and Mr. Franklin seconds final adoption of ordinance number 2322. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
6 yes.
There is an emergency clause in this, so.
Mr. Franklin moves adoption of the emergency clause, seconded by Mr. Beverly for ordinance number 23-2022. Any questions or comments about the emergency clause? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Crockett,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
6 yes.
Motion passes unanimously. So my question to City Attorney Valley is now that the ward map has been approved and the ordinance approved, what kind of publication requirements, what do you recommend we go forward in terms of notifying the public and publication in the paper and so forth?
I think due to the lateness of it, we need to publish in the paper probably at least twice. I think we need to do notice in the city clerk's office as well as the county clerk's office to let them know that that this map has been adopted. And any radio station asks, it would be helpful to let people know that there's been a slight change in the maps. They need to make sure that they have the current map. Their website also. I think full on good says to that this has been adopted.
It's my understanding, now, from what you've explained to us, it's very little change. We just picked up a few, moved some more people into the wards that needed it. It's a very little change that they'll have to do.
That's correct. And this is map number 5 is actually pretty impressive for the deviation. Pretty good words. Attorney Jeff has a question or a statement.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, those people who have been moved, because we have precincts based on wards, they will vote at a different place, so we do just let them know as soon as possible. Like the East Drive people will now vote wherever Ward 3 votes, I think that's the First Baptist Church. And those that are on Door Street will now vote over in Helena as opposed to at First Baptist Church, so it's gonna be some movement of where they go.
We have a member of the election commission here. Can you come up, do you mind if y'all could speak at the mic because we're on the radio and also Zoom, like if you want everybody to hear.
Good evening, Mr.
It doesn't matter because we're going to vote centers. Vote centers, you can vote anywhere. That's our next move on the next election. And that's gonna help us out. It's going to make it more efficient and gonna take some of the barriers down. It's gonna be fine.
Is that-
You all understand what a vote center
Is
is.
that gonna be in this election? Or
That's gonna be in this election.
So this election, we can
We're moved to go to vote centers.
Okay.
Okay, the election.
To go to
In vote center, you can vote anywhere. We're not moving any of the polling places. But if you live in Elaine, and you work in West Helena, you want to vote while you're here, you can vote here. If you live in Marble and you want to vote here in West Helena while you're here, you can vote here. That's on election day.
You live in Marlboro, and you work in Marlboro, and you live in Marlboro, and you work in West End, you can go to work there, it's a vote site.
Okay, that's. Ms. Up, will you explain it just in a little more detail so the listening audience will understand, because you jumped in the middle of a conversation. We are all elected officials understand what you're saying, but you're on the radio and on Zoom. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Okay, the election commission had a meeting. My name is John Huff, the Democratic Election Commissioner for Phillips County. The election commissioners had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we decided to move forward with the vote center. The vote center is a stationary polling place where everybody has the same opportunities to go in that vote center and vote. That's Phillips County. There's only one polling place that's going to be moved, and that's going to be Poplar Grove, the Phillips City. And that's because Mr. Terry Field is on the ballot. And if you're on the ballot, you can't have the election, the polling site on your ballot. But the vote center is something that should have been done several years ago. It's been done in Lee County, it's been done in Monroe County. It's only 2 counties in the state of Arkansas that had to do it, and Phillips County is one of them. And that's because our community wanted to.
So, one follow-up question. When we say a voting center, the traditional precincts will we go to for the listing audience? Will we still go to any of the existing polling sites?
All the polling sites I said before, say, but one will be new. We're gonna still have the same existing polling sites. It's just gonna make it easier. It's gonna take the barriers down. The only polling place that's gonna be moved is, once again, it's gonna be Poplar Road. The site that's at Fuller Seat is gonna be moved to the Marble polling site, the Marble Fire Station. So those people in the Poplar Road area will have to be transported to Marble to vote. But here in the West Helena, everything stays the same, but anybody can go anywhere and vote.
You want to go ahead and tell us what the sites are in Helena West Helena?
I don't have a list and I don't want to miss, but I'm sure Cherry Street Fire Station, First Baptist Church on Carranza, Second Baptist in Baldwin, Third in Baldwin, and that's it. Marble Fire Station, there's one in Melwood, there's one in Lakeview, there's one in Baldwin.
If I can just add this one thing, the voting center is just like using the courthouse in early voting, except you're ready to do the same thing on election day at all of the polling places.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. It's easy.
Madam Clerk, we need to make sure we get this published and get it to Ms. County Clerk, Ms. Winfield. I want to say white, but tomorrow morning, so they can begin work on it.
And I'll go ahead and ask GIS to, well, actually, I've already asked them. They just couldn't get to it in time for a meeting but I'll ask them to do just map 5 here. It was adopted, so you can see a little bit better detail if you want to. And we'll try to get that emailed out there to you. And also we'll try to get that on our website so that people who want to know. Mr. Huff, I can't. I'm sorry. Mr. Huff, you're recognized. And thank you for coming, Mr. Huff, as a member of the Phillips County Election
The
Commission.
map also has to be sent to the election commission to be approved before you start sending it everywhere. So that should be your next step. Send it to the election commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other requirements that we need to make sure we cover legally?
Each of us need a copy of.
Yeah, I'm going to email you you have this, but I'll re-email it to you again along with the GIS version that corresponds with this map. And so put it on our website. But we need to make sure we expeditiously get it to the election commission. So then I'm trying to think of the deadlines for 2 newspapers, but we need to move.
If you would ask GIS, to break out each ward and a big picture for you all, so everybody can see the streets.
Each one or each ward?
Each ward. Yeah, they can single them out.
I think they can, I don't know if it's 3 separate maps, but they can do it. I think, pretty sure they can do it.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. I was saying. Any copy? Yes.
And just as a general reminder, it is now, today is July the 5th. And filing is August 3rd through August 10th. So now it's time for everybody to get their signatures and to file for.
Okay, so, all right, if there's no other business about redrawing the boundaries, any other business about that? All right, thank you, Ms. Valley, and we move on to discussion items. And some of those are mine, so it shouldn't take too long. Update on the water department, we've advertised the position for water manager, as we discussed at the last meeting. We've had at least one applicant who meets all the state requirements for certification and licensing. And he's been interviewed, but the fine period's not over yet, so. But I just want to give you an update on that. The animal shelter, a bidding has been placed on ourbid.com. However, I have not invited anybody specifically. Our bid is the state bidding website that we participate in. It goes to thousands of vendors. The only comment I believe I've gotten so far is somebody that wanted to bid on a camera system if we get a camera system for it, but they weren't interested in bidding on the overall project. So I'm anxious to get bids. I haven't invited anybody, but anybody who's paying attention to this on the radio or on Zoom, who's interested in bidding, go to ourbid.com or bring it by the city hall. But anyway, those bids, that bid has been let out. Also, I'm trying my best to get to visit the shelter. I'm kind of hoping I get to do that Thursday, but we'll see. And also in the bid, it specifically mentions the Lee County shelter because y'all mentioned that in your motion when you passed it. So I put it in there. Preparation between any questions about those 2 items before we go?
On the water department, I wasn't at the last meeting, but do we have an update on employing someone for the position? That we're about to be fined $500,000 for?
Yes, well, that's what I was saying. I invited the health department to come down and brief the city council on the status and what they did when we had transition in the general manager position, and we only had 2 applicants. One isn't qualified anyway. Was well-intended, fine person, but he had no credentials, had never worked for a water department. The other person was Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson agreed to come on board, but he lacked one of the credentials. So he, as has been reported, he's brought up, or I probably wouldn't bring it up, but he did not pass the exam to get the credential, which now has trigonometry on it and several things it never had before. So I can certainly identify with that. However, the health department gave us approximately a year to make that happen, and we didn't. So what they're telling us is that we have to now. And so Mr. Patterson understands that. Mr. Patterson actually had to talk me into doing it in the beginning anyway. And he's a participant in all of this, a willing participant. And so we put the position out there for advertisement, as we mentioned at the last meeting. And actually, the health department, because they know of our situation, submitted the individual I was talking about to us as somebody who was qualified, who was interested. So we'll see where that leads. It's not over yet.
So are you saying that to be general manager of the water department, you have to have certain credentials?
No, ma'am. What I'm saying is the city, a city municipal utility, water and sewer utility, has to have those credentials individuals on staff. But if you have a general manager who has them all, then you rate them. So in order to get somebody with those kind of credentials, you have to pay a competitive sum. 62,000 or 65,000 for general manager for water department with those credentials. To run two different distribution systems is very difficult. We advertise in all the journals, all the usual places, as well as the common places, and we also, I called people and all that. It's just very difficult to get anybody to come here. This gentleman is different in terms of his wife situation. So, but like I said, I'm not going to say because the position hasn't closed yet, so we might get others. But that's a good sign. It's very difficult to get people with that salary, but at least we've had one qualified person apply, and that's a good sign. So that was my update on that. Any other questions about any of that or the animal shelter? Okay, appropriations for 22 American Rescue Plan Act funds. So when we had the settlement things agreed to get funds for 2022 for water and sewer purposes, but that hasn't actually happened yet. The money is expected to be here within the next 30 days. So if in that event, the appropriations at least should be ready to go so that when the money's here, we can start taking advantage of it as soon as possible. And Lord knows we need it, and it's a welcome event. So I bring that to your attention again, Mr. Franklin.
You said it's needed.
Yes, sir.
It is, but Mayor, I know you're waiting on those appropriations, but Mayor, you have, to me, you have not showed us that you were good stewards over what we gave, what you're supposed to last time. You did what you wanted to do with that money, and the water department's still in the hole. It's 5 of the votes besides mine. You know, I mean, like you said one thing and do another. It's one of those times I'm gonna say one thing and do another. I'm not in favor of appropriating the money to the water department. Okay. And I'm just one.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Any other comments or questions?
I'm gonna persuade the rest of them going along with it.
About the American Rescue Plan Act funds for 22. It's anticipated to be about $1.1 million again.
That's campaign for too.
So we have many needs we've discussed here before, like the pumps that we're renting, we need to be replaced with pumps that we own, would be a big item. There are bills in the water department that need to be paid. There are a lot of issues with the water department. And y'all know about all of those issues, but this is a windfall from the federal government that allows us the opportunity to take advantage of these monies and actually solve some of these problems. Right. But you, the city council, you appropriate the money. One of the things you agreed to when we did the bonuses for the last money was to appropriate 22 money for water and sewer. So all I'm asking you is appropriate it, not approve immediate expenditures. And of course, we'll notify you when we actually receive the money.
I didn't get a bonus, so we talked about that.
But it does take time, so it would be wise to appropriate it and then come back with specific expenditures for you to approve again when the money actually gets here. So
I got a question.
We can take the maximum use of it because we do spend bad money after good when we don't invest in our water and sewer infrastructure. Mr. Franklin, again.
Mr. Mayor. Now, this body, everybody, Ms. Crockett, Ms. Ford, Ms. Davis, Ms. St. Columbia, Mr. Anthony, myself, we voted to raise water and sewer rates, right? The folks got an increase on their water bill due to this body, Ms. St. Columbia. In this administration, he just said to you all, listen, the money is needed to go to the water program.
why did we raise these people rates? And now you got this money finna come, you wanna use it, but you, the CEO of the city, can't tell us what you did with the money. They put the water department in the hole, but you want us to give you some more money. Then we don't know what the money that we raise the citizens rate going. You raise sanitation fees. They don't, the water department don't even get a sanitation department their fees. That's something you should do. Ms. Williams, how much do the water department owe the sanitation department in sanitation fees that this body decided, we collectively went, raised the sanitation fee? How much money does the water department owe this, the sanitation department? They collect the money, but they ain't gave it to the sanitation department, am I correct? Right, the city clerk said I was right. So they owe about $600,000, right? $600,000. But here's the man telling you now, listen to what he said. The money is desperately needed. When sanitation trucks go out, the water department decided not to give the sanitation their money to get trucks or whatever they need. So it's gonna put Ms. Rams in the hole when it comes time to pay for those new trucks that this body voted for. Then we voted to pay to get some new trucks. We raise y'all sanitation fee, and the mayor decided, and the water department has not given us the money, so it's gonna find our city clerk in a position to try to find money to pay a bill. $600,000. But the mayor said the money is desperately needed. So somebody need to go back to math class, because you, sir, are mismanaging the city's money. Because why would you give some money when we raise sanitation fees, water rates, and sewer rates to fix these issues? Let's campaigns now. Get you out of there.
And if you'd done what I asked you to do,
we did what you asked to do, and still, you call folks in, wait a minute, because you said, did what you said do. Thank you. You hadn't had a water manager, you had the time to get a water manager, you did not do that. You fired a water manager, then you declared the emergency after the city attorney told you that the governor on one can call you can't declare emergency at the same time the governor did, but you don't want to listen to him during Black History Month. That has come and gone. Tonight was the first time that you ever referred to the city attorney. City attorney, you did an excellent job tonight, and you've been right. He needed you tonight. But one time, he called no route. So, Mayor, stop playing games with the citizens and tell them the truth that you have mismanaged the water department's money, and that's why the water department is struggling. Because Miss Sandy, and I'm not lying, you have not gotten all the bills from the storm, the Easter storm that he said he declared emergency. You have not gotten all those bills yet to know how much money he spent. You have not gave this body not one bill how much money you spent. And I'm just telling the truth. You get out here, you went and bought some more equipment without this body's approval. You went and bought something, you post on your web page, on the city's page, that you bought this thing to cut down trees and whatever says much needed, but you didn't come through us, you didn't call the city attorney. But that's why the city's in trouble, because you take the city's money and use it for your personal good to look good, because it's election time. You may kiss a Black baby now. You may take a picture with anybody now at this point because you're desperate to win. Treat these folks right with the city's money. Stop getting into these contracts that we don't know nothing about. They're saying they got to buy money to pay bills. You get folks to do work with our equipment. So that being said, Mayor, I've rambled along. But still, you gonna do with the water department, because that's the only way that $1.1 million, you figure out a way how you gonna get the radio station this and somebody else that, cut down a tree here. We didn't pay for trees to cut down. We the most paying folks to cut down trees, and when you had a storm, we got a bill of $100,000 to cut down trees. You're paying somebody to go cut the park, and you can use the street department to cut the park.
That's the good.
No, it ain't.
They do.
No.
Also.
Okay.
But somebody else is doing it.
You got somebody to spend them with no Frank Clancy cut their park. Don't you pay him to cut their park? I knew it was right.
Franklin,
It hurts when you're wrong.
you've been heard. Are you done?
I'm finna go. I mean, we're adjourned.
Let me respond.
No, I ain't no respond.
Mr. Franklin, if you don't keep talking over me, they'll never know the truth.
Well, you know what?
So you want me to answer your question?
You don't know what the truth is.
Well, that's the public doesn't know, because you won't let them hear it.
You know what?
Mr. Franklin.
Mr. Franklin. Yeah. Please. Because we only do. I'm gonna come back with you.
Mr. Franklin,
You the judge now?
you're making speeches. This is a city council meeting.
Speech, this is what's called city council.
We're addressing the American Rescue Act of 2022, which y'all have already agreed to appropriate for water and sewer. All this is a request to go ahead and do it. And what I want the public to understand is that the water and sewer department is, Mr. Franklin, show some respect for the body, for the public, for this meeting. Show some respect for other people. Mr. Franklin, there's a.
Is putting this city in debt. That's what I want. Stop paying your friends and everybody else with city's money. Tell the truth.
Mr. Franklin, I'm trying to, but you won't stop talking.
Because I'm sick and tired of Helena looks as bad as it does. You holler about ride the city's property look bad. Tell the planning commission what you did with those bricks over there that y'all had moved.
Is there a second to adjourn?
That's right.
Is there a second?
Let's go.
He made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Okay. There you go, Joe.
Mr. Franklin, second. Ms. Franklin, you don't want the truth to
You know
come
what
out.
you did? Tell
Means adjourned.
the bricks over there. We know, y'all. Tell the bricks that.